Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for being here. I know I told people to grab some water, but it's 7:05 now, and we'll get started. But before we begin, we want to make sure that people have, access to the sound in whatever. If you speak Spanish, sorry, you can go ahead and tune in to the interpretation. If you look to the bottom right, there's like a planet, you just click it and go to the Spanish. Si hay alguien aquí que quiere servicios de interpretación, si va abajo a la derecha va a haber como un planeta y ahí le pachurra y va a tener la opción de sintonizarse en español y ahí va a estar nuestra interpretadora Lynette. But welcome to our virtual teach-in, Healing. We're so honored to hold this virtual community with you. But yeah, before we begin, I would like to encourage everyone to learn and acknowledge the land that we are on. And our team will provide a link in the chat where you can check whose land you're on. I'm currently in Berkeley, California, in the East Bay, which is a traditional and unceded territory of the Ohlone people. Consistent with our values, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible our relationship to Native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold institutions more accountable to the needs of Indigenous people. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and to recognize the hundreds of Indigenous nations who continue to resist, live, and uphold their sacred relations across their lands. We also pay our respect to Indigenous elders past, present, and future, and to those who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you, Grace, for dropping that chat in the link. If you're in Pomona right now, you're on Tongva land, Gabrielino land. So go ahead and yeah, you can do that whenever you'd like. So yeah, thank you. The Teach-In Healing Action is a monthly 1 hour and 30-minute event where we provide political education for community members to develop as organizers, provide healing and grounding exercises for them to sustain their work, and a space where we will be supportive of active grassroots campaigns and connect people to movements. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us in this virtual community. I understand it's really hard to show up, so just want to give props to people that came through today. And as a reminder, we do have a heal-in aspect. So I wanted to make this note that it will be helpful if you have a towel, blanket, or pillow near you for the healing aspect. So feel free to grab that whenever you can. We will start with the teaching portion, but yeah, that's just something to keep in mind for the healing portion. But yeah, if you have any questions throughout this whole event, you can go ahead and drop them in the Q&A section or in the chat, and we will do our best to answer it. And now I feel super honored to let you know that our teach-in will be led by Miranda Sheffield and Fabian Pavon, two of our very own homegrown Pomona organizers. They will be leading us in exploring Black and Brown solidarity, what that means. Also to help us get through the anxiety and grief brought on by the pandemic. We will have community healers Jenny Ray Vidal and Grace Gonzalez lead us in some healing and grounding exercises. And if you attended our last teaching and healing, you know it was really amazing. So I hope that you can stay with us the whole time and remain engaged. But yeah, without further ado, I'll welcome Miranda and Fabian.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Really appreciate you. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Hey everyone, thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. I'm excited to be here again for our second month of the teach-in. And something that I wanted to get us to jump in right in, I want y'all to really utilize the chat. But this month is Women's History Month. And I felt that it would be really important that when we talk about solidarity, it's important to talk about the women who don't always get mentioned and who I think in many ways have always been left out of the history of the struggles that have taken place in the Black and Brown community. So today I wanted to give some examples of women that have been a part of different solidarity moments that have been really profound, I think, to me, and I would love for y'all to share more into that. But then also just lifting up the voices of women and everything. So you can go to the next slide. And so this is a picture that I think is really important to look at because sometimes we like to think of women like, okay, traditional ways of like, a certain heterosexual, picture, whatever that may mean. But in this picture, you got folks who are disabled, you got folks, some young folks, and you got folks that maybe are Muslim, you got folks that are just from all different walks of life that are all finding ways to build and to show up for one another. So I feel like having an image like this really has a great representation of, the folks that who are part of the movement, that it's not just a one type of look and stuff. Next slide. And so to start us off, when we're talking about specifically things with women, I think it's important to lift up a certain type of framework with how we understand, these struggles and stuff. How many of y'all have heard, if you can put in the chat, have you heard the word intersectionality? If you've heard that word before, okay, Jada, yes, thank you, Jada. Jenny, because, okay, all these wonderful folks on here. Okay, Paul, I see you. Beautiful. Of course, you should know, Jesus. Grace, Brenda, in Berkeley, of course, you know as well. Okay, good. Okay, great. So I just wanted to keep it, if those who have not heard tonight, and this is maybe your first time hearing, I put this quote from Audre Lorde just to kind of ground us in what it means. The word was coined by a Black feminist scholar by the name of Kimberly Crenshaw. And what she did was she really came up with intersectionality to lift up the struggles of Black women and to let folks know that, um, you know, there were a lot of Black women who were being left out of like how we understand theory and how we understand practice. And so in a way to amplify the struggles of Black folks, she coined this term. And the best way to describe it is just looking at this quote that Audre Lorde has put together, which is, there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live in single issue lives. So for me, when I think about this word in particular, I think that yes, I am a Black woman, right? And I move and breathe through that. But I understand that there's different levels of, you know, privilege that I may be moving through, right? Or there's different levels of oppression that my brothers and sisters may be moving through. So it's important for me as being a Black woman to understand that I just as much as it is important for me to think about what it means to be a Black woman, it's important for me to uplift the undocumented, brothers and sisters who may be going through their thing. So I think that's like very important in how we understand how things, we're all moving through intersectionality. It's important to use that as a framework. You can go to the next slide. And so, have any of y'all heard of these names? Should be good. Most of y'all should have. Okay, Michelle, you have your hand raised. Wonderful. Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. What about Lolita? I think that's okay. Well, we're gonna learn about Lolita today. Okay, great, Asia. Um, I wanted to tell y'all about, there's Asada's book is probably one of my most favorite books to read by her, because I think she just does a really good job of like making it very plain and easy for us to understand, some of the stuff that goes on in our community. So what I wanted to do is just read you. It came out of Asada Shakur's biography, and she talks about how, she met Lolita Lebron, who was like an Puerto Rican activist, and I think for the most part, she understood that they were, you know, moving through a lot of the same type of issues, but they also had some frictions. So let me just pull this up. I thought I could just click on it, but it's not going to be nice to me. Let me get that. Let's see. Nope, that's not the one I want. Black and Asian Solidarity Region. Nope. Oh no, I want though. Oh, there it is. That is it. Sorry, my link is not being nice to me. And I really want to just read this in its fullness to y'all. Okay, so let me just pull it up for you. But this one I think is really important to understand, because I like when Asada talks about the two of them. And here's the expert. It's just a small excerpt from the book. And this is what Asada said about meeting Lolita Lebron. She said, "One day I was returning to Davis Hall. A middle-aged woman with a salt and pepper hair caught my eye. She had a dignified school teacher look. Something drew me towards her. As I searched her face, I could see she was searching mine. Our eyes locked in a questioning gaze. 'Lolita,' I ventured. 'Asada,' she responded. And there, in the middle of the Alderson prison grounds, we hugged and kissed each other. For me, this is one of the great honors in my life. Lolita Lebron was one of the most respected political prisoners in the world. Ever since I learned about her courageous struggle for the independence of Puerto Rico, I had read everything I could find about that had been written about her. She spent a quarter of a century behind bars and had refused parole unless her comrades were also freed. After all those years, she had remained strong, unbent, unbroken, still dedicated to the independence of Puerto Rico and the liberation of her people. She deserved more respect than anyone could possibly give her, and I cannot do enough to demonstrate my respect." And so what she does is that, to sum it up for y'all, is that, Asada talks about how her and Lolita, really were together in a lot of ways because they understood what it meant to stand up for their people. But I really want to lift this up, is that even though you see the solidarity moment happening between Asada, who was a part of like the Black struggle, the Black Liberation Army, uh, Asada was a woman that, very much so was about doing whatever it took to liberate her people. Amazing woman. But at the same time, Lolita Lebron, who was basically, very religious, but still political, which I always find to be so funny. Lolita was very anti-socialist, for she opposed it. She opposed communists. And you know, her that's where her and Asada different. Asada was very much so rooted in understanding socialism and moving through that. But at the same time, she had nothing but respect for Lolita, because she understood that this woman was more committed than anyone, could really put into words for her. So I just wanted to give y'all that's really important, to show those two things as these two women who are really doing some powerful stuff together. And then next slide. And then my favorite, you can see here, I have pictures of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, because we definitely don't want to have an erasure of the struggles that our Black and brown trans women have put forward for our community. Has anybody does anybody know about the Stonewall movement? Paul? Yes. Wonderful. I see these hands being raised. This is good. And when y'all think, when you see these, just to see, when y'all see these images, what are some of the things, you know, that stand out immediately to you, that resonate with you when you see these images of these two beautiful Black trans brown and women who were out here just doing it for the culture, doing it for the people? What resonates with you? What do you think about when you see them? Humanity. I love that, Paul. Joy. Yes, Cassandra. Authenticity. Love it. Oh, Michelle, unity. Mm-hmm. Yes. Love. Yeah. Courage. Courage is so, so good. And if y'all want, yeah, please keep putting those Heidi. Strength. Yes. And I think the reason why I really want to is like, imagine if we thought about our education and how we are, um, I love that, Brenda, knowledge. If we thought about the ways in which we were educated, imagine, you know, if we were, if this was where we started off with how we begin our education about social movements, that before we were, even for me, like even before there is education about the civil rights movement, even before there's education about all these other things, there is first education about the Stonewall movement. I think we as organizers and then we as people would be in a different type of position if this is where we started off with our understanding, because the Stonewall was political, it was radical, it was rooted in principle, and it was trans women who were leading it. And I think those things are very important to understand, that you even saw here a lot of beautiful Black and brown solidarity. You can go to the next one. And then here, I just wanted us to know about in Chicago, probably mostly there were, and I would, I'm still myself learning more and more about the Young Lords, but mostly when we hear about the Young Lords, it's mostly, heard through the men and stuff. But there were a lot of women who were in really high positions of the Young Lords, which is basically like the same type of, the Young Lords was basically Puerto Ricans, brown folks in the Chicago area that were similar to the Black Panther Party, and they were working together. And I wanted to lift them up because, there were a lot of, Afro Latina women who were definitely taking charge in how they were doing the work that they were doing. And I think it's important for y'all to like, know that these women were out there and they were doing really dope things, in the community and stuff like that. I think there's one more, maybe. Nope, that's okay. So let's go back real quick and then I'll let Pavon. So before I hand it over to Mr. Pavon, I wanted to real quick give y'all, because this month there's been a lot of you know, Asian hate going on. And I think it's really important for us to, find ourselves and to make sure that we're in solidarity with our brothers and sisters, our fam, our sibs who are part of the Asian community. And so what I wanted to do was to drop in the chat this it's a really great reading list that y'all can check out, that was put together, and because I know we have such a small time together, so I just wanted to drop in the chat. It's a really great reading list that uplifts the Black and brown solidarity through a feminist lens of oh, there it is. Yay, I'm not gonna have to do that. Okay. It's a great here, I'll put it there so you can see. It's a great list that a good reading list for y'all to like move through to understand more in depth the solidarity that has taken place with uh, Black and Asian women and folks of that nature. So there we go. Y'all can check that out. Um, thank you so much for your time and happy Women's History Month. It's important for us to root ourselves in this history and to know that there's a lot of women who are not out here getting their flowers, and we need to change that. So thank y'all. I'm going to hand it over to Pavon.
Thank you so much, Miranda. And so we felt that we, you know, we didn't want to simply, address, Black and Brown solidarity because I feel that addressing Black and Brown solidarity is not complete without really understanding how anti-Blackness is deeply embedded in the Latinx community. I know last year during the uprisings of the Black Lives Matter protests and everything like that, there was a lot of folks, I was able to kind of learn from some of my friends and acquaintances that there was a lot of conversations. The events of last year with the Black Lives Matter uprisings and movement, they drew a lot of difficult conversations in the dinner tables within the Latinx community. And so some of those conversations went well. Some of those conversations, kind of took a toll and a strain on some of the youngsters that were standing in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and had to come home and explain to their parents why it was important to stand in solidarity with the Latinx with the Black community. So I kind of wanted to take a little bit of time to unpack where does the anti-Blackness within our community stem from. So that's why we wanted to put together this quick presentation to not only talk about Black and Brown solidarity, but also talk about the elephant in the room, which is the anti-Blackness in the Latinx community. And so I found this video that does a really great job of breaking it down for us. So I'm gonna play it for a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and unpack it even further. Check this out.
In Latin America, we have a long history of anti-Blackness. We had many more people of African ancestry. And so that history of enforced slavery has a very long legacy within Latin America. And it's said that outside of Nigeria, in Brazil, is thought to be a location with the highest percentage of people of African descent. Given that density of people of African ancestry coexisting at the same time with their lack of social mobility, what you instead see is a social hierarchy that is a racial caste system. And Latin Americans would say, oh, well, it's a class issue. But when a class issue is so completely coalescing with a pigmentocracy, then it's hard to say it's only about class. When I refer to this term of pigmentocracy, what I'm referring to are the ways in which there is a social hierarchy that is arrayed from light to dark, with light being places with the most economic success, most greatest access to socioeconomic opportunity, and darker spheres with less. And the only sort of additional nuance in that is that you could have light skin, but if you have African features or African hair texture, then that lowers your currency.
Given this obsession with whiteness, it's no surprise that throughout Latin America, there were government-led efforts to make countries majority white. In Brazil, it was called branqueamento, and in many parts of Latin America, blanqueamento. The term literally means whitening.
But what is fascinating to note is that after the emancipation of slavery, what you instead see is a turn to the use of immigration law to diminish the access and the mobility of recently emancipated slaves. Like in Argentina and in Brazil in particular, where they had the funding for this, they sort of opened the doors to European immigration. In Argentina, the population doubles after the emancipation of slavery because of the open door policy for European immigration.
Beyond bringing Europeans into Latin American countries to literally lighten the race, Hernandez also said that there were restrictions on the lives of people of African ancestry, like the types of jobs Black people could work, the Afro-spiritual religions that they practiced, and even the quality of their education. So, Latin America, y'all think that you're not guilty of institutionalized racism led by the hand of law? As Hernandez points out, the state and law played a huge role in Latin America's anti-Blackness some time ago. But the racist ideologies and aspirations of whiteness, though more subtle, still exist even in the United States. What do you think? Generations of racist conditioning are just going to magically disappear?
All right. So the video does a really great job at kind of touching upon how anti-Blackness did not just start at our dinner table with our parents, right? It's deeply embedded in colonialism. It's deeply embedded in white supremacy and the systems that were created after that. So if you see this chart right here to the left-hand side, this is actually a chart that was created that kind of showed, it basically determined your social status, it determined your class, but your class and your social status depended on how light your skin was or how Black your skin was. And so basically this chart on the left, and this chart was a chart utilized all over Latin America and Mexico. And so basically it showed you like how you can go from being dark skinned to eventually having a family that's white or Spanish, right? So basically, if you're Black and if you want to climb up the social ladder in Latin America, you would basically have to find someone who's white who would have babies with you. And then when those babies are born, of course, they still have African features. And so those babies would have to mate with other light-skinned folks, and then their babies would come up a little bit whiter. And then those babies would have to have more babies with other white light-skinned folks. And then eventually, that would make your descendants lighter, and it would give them a better chance at being able to climb up the social ladder in Latin America, as well as the ladder when it comes to class, social and economic status. So this was basically, they literally in Latin America, they created a blueprint for how you can be white a few generations down so that your family can be better off, right? So they literally created this system. They literally embedded anti-Blackness in the Latinx community as a result of colonization. So this is how deeply embedded some of those conversations that us brown folks might have, where we might have a tío or a tía that say some really racist things, or even a parent or a sibling that might say some really anti-Black things. All of those things are rooted in the system of white supremacy and in the system of colonization, of colonialism. And so the folks in the video really touched upon how, like, even after slavery was abolished, right? So sometimes, going through the school system, we're kind of taught that, okay, so once we freed the slaves, like, everything was better, there's no more racism. Once we integrated the schools, like, there was no more racism, right? Or the last racist died when they killed Martin Luther King, right? But so just going back to when they abolished slavery in Latin America, it didn't mean that racism ended, right? They still literally created a system of immigration law that basically gave in an open door policy to Europeans and allowed them to migrate to Latin America, so that way there could be even more white people, and to eventually be able to white out the indigenous folks and the Black folks in these various countries in Latin America. So that's how far anti-Blackness in the Latinx community actually goes. So this anti-Blackness, again, it stemmed from these systems of white supremacy. And so just another example of how basically power structures literally divide and conquer us is there's an example where when Texas was still a part of Mexico and the U.S. was looking to take over Texas and looking to take over the Southwest or what was the northwest of Mexico at that time, they you know, when there was a lot of the Anglos coming in, moving into Texas, they would be bringing in their slaves, and at that time, you know, when Texas belonged to Mexico, they basically they abolished slavery, so you couldn't necessarily have slaves. But as eventually when Texas became a part of the U.S. or when it became its own state for a while, and then it became part of the U.S., you know, black and brown folks could not hang out together, or else white folks would beat both of them. And the reason why they would do this is because they would think that Mexicans would want to help the black slaves escape slavery, and they would help them. They believe that they would help the black folks go south into Mexico, where slavery was abolished at a certain point. And so black and brown folks cannot hang out together at that time, or else they would be jailed, or else they would be beaten. So this, this unity among black and brown folks, this anti-blackness within the Latinx community, again, is deeply embedded in these systems of white supremacy. It's deeply embedded in colonialism. So that's how far back these things go. But even today, we still see those things, right? And so I just brought up some examples of anti-blackness in the Latinx community, and these are actually actual screenshots that I saw on my Facebook, and this was taking place. Like, a lot of folks were saying things like this last year. So I took these screenshots last year when when the Black Lives Matter movement was really really catching a lot of attention. And so you kind of see these posts about oh, like how come people don't riot when the raspados when the raspado man gets beaten, right? They or things like, if all lives matter, how come no one riots for us when ICE got our people in cages, right? They really tried to kind of, like, the media really started to focus on some of these things right here, like the raspado folks and the elotero folks getting beaten by black folks, but they don't talk about how brown gang members would also beat and harass eloteros and paleteros and things like that. And not only that, but there was a lot of folks kind of bringing up, the cages, the having ICE or having Central American kids, having the kids in cages, right? But I noticed that there was a lot of Latinos that they never stood in solidarity with the kids in cages before Black Lives Matter made noise, right? And all of a sudden, Black Lives Matter is making noise, and now there's these Latinos who were never involved in anything, all of a sudden want to make it about kids in cages, right? So it's okay to talk about kids in cages, but there's folks that have been doing this work. There's black and brown folks that have been doing the work to bring attention to kids in cages already, right? But there's other folks who only bring these things up when Black Lives Matter is making noise. Instead of standing in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, they bring up their own issues, which many of them were not even involved in any of these movements that were already taking place. Other forms of anti-blackness that I do want to mention is kind of like when your parents or your grandparents might say, oh, like, don't go out in the sun too much, you're gonna get dark, make sure you stay in, so you stay light skinned and things like that. I don't know about y'all, but I would get that a lot all the time. But you know what, I love my beautiful brown skin, everybody. And so it's also one thing that I would really like to point out is, again, like I said, I noticed that a lot of these posts and a lot of the attention about eloteros and things was being brought up during a time when there was folks standing in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, simultaneously. And so it's important to understand, why does the media highlight these certain issues that divide us, that divide Black and brown people during a time where solidarity is one of the most important things to do? Well, that's because when Black and brown people come together, and we stay coming together, oh crap. When Black and brown people come together, there's nothing that can stop us. As you can see, some of you were at the Black Lives Matter protests here in Pomona, and we, there's folks of every color. There's Black and brown folks standing in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. There has always been Black folks that have stood in solidarity with the kids in cages and with abolishing ICE. And so once we realize the power that we have, once we realize that we have similar oppressors, there's nothing that can stop us, y'all. We can start this interracial organizing and resistance movements, y'all. And so this is what the system is really afraid of us coming together and understanding that we have similar oppressors, and that when we come together and we stand in solidarity, there's nothing that can stop us, y'all. Now, another thing that I do want to mention that I think is worth bringing up. So I put together this little chart, and so I highlighted these particular social identities like race, class, assigned sex, gender expression, sexuality. And if you look at the top, it says social identity, privilege / hegemonic groups, institutional structural oppressions, form of discrimination / oppression, oppressed, marginalized groups, internalized oppressions, forms of resistance. So I decided to highlight these things right here. And so what I want you to pay attention to right now is this section right here that says privilege / hegemonic groups. So when you look at race and class, so the most privileged groups when it comes to race and class is, of course, white folks, and the richest 1% or the 9.9% or the global 1%. But when we look at assigned sex, and we look at gender, we look at gender expression, sexuality, the privileged and hegemonic groups within these categories are men. So men are privileged. Cisgender folks, particularly males, are privileged. Male and female gender conforming folks or heterosexual folks are within these privileged groups in these particular social identities. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I do talk a lot about, race and class, right? And how, we're always talking about how Black and brown folks are oppressed. And we
Pavon?
Yes.
Just slow down just a little bit.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
And so we also talk about how like within, or we just talked about how within the Latinx community, we still even oppress darker skinned folks. We oppress Black folks within the Latinx community. But I think one of the most important points that I want to make right now, especially when keeping in mind Women's History Month and keeping in mind, the men that are here taking up space in this space in the virtual realm, is I think one of the most important things that men can do during Women's History Month, on top of acknowledging the contributions of women of color, is understanding that although Black and brown folks are oppressed, that even that this, and I said this at the last teach-in, this country and the institutions that were created after that initial document of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, those things were created by rich, white, cisgendered, heterosexual men to the benefit of rich, white, cisgendered, heterosexual men, right? So although these systems weren't created for Black and brown folks, it was created to privilege men, and particularly cisgendered, heterosexual.
Granny's not gonna like it, huh?
Sorry? Oh, so particularly cisgendered, heterosexual men. So what I want you all to understand, the men that are here, is one of the first things that we can do, especially in this month, but hopefully here on thereafter, is acknowledge that as men, as cisgendered, heterosexual men, we do carry a privilege, and that we need to understand when it's time to move aside and allow mujeres to take the lead. Porque sin mujer no hay revolución. Thank you all very much.
Hey, Seuss, before we make our transition, is it okay if there's anyone who has questions? Do we have space for that? If folks have any questions about anything me or Fabian presented on? Because we would love to hold space for that as well before we make this transition.
We actually got like 2 minutes. So if you want to take the question, go for it.
And we have one question, you know, if y'all have anything that you would like to ask based on the information that was shared, you know, let us know. We'll be happy to answer that for y'all.
Mireya has their hand raised.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Oh,
Hi, my name is Mireya. I'm from Ventura in the 805 area. My question, because I was like 30 minutes late, I apologize, was where does the heal-in come in place and what does that look like? Or if you've already discussed it, well, I don't want to waste your time.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I know we usually, right now with the teachings, sometimes we bring in these heavy topics. And so right now was the heavy topic. And right after this is going to be a chance to kind of, heal with that. So right after this.
There's a question in the Q&A section. I don't know if y'all want to take a look at that.
yeah. Alfonso is asking, Al saying, how can we share power with women? If you would like to answer that, Fabian.
How can we share power with women? This is a tough question. And I think, I don't know, I don't think I can answer that because or at least correctly, because I feel like what do I know? I don't, but I think probably the best thing to do is just understand, I think one of the main things that I notice with men is that we tend to talk over women a lot, and it's easy to be like, well, they didn't speak up, but a lot of times it's just because we don't allow space for them to speak up, right? We don't say, we don't pause in our speech to see if there's folks that want to speak up, right? So I think one of the ways that we could do that is making sure that we allow space for folks to share what they have to say.
And then I would just say real quickly before we move on, just to answer that question, Al, is that I think it's important for us to think through, I think it's important for us to think through the importance of when, who needs to be centered, which voices need to be centered, meaning I know that when I'm in a space with a bunch of white folks, I need white folks to make themselves really small. I really don't need to have you directing anything. I don't need you telling us this is the path forward. No, just go sit down, go grab some Subway sandwiches, be an accomplice, be an ally, but we don't need your leadership in this particular moment, period, at all. And so I think that translates very well when you think about, even when it comes to being in solidarity with mujeres, is that you also need to be able to recognize that, if I got, a bunch of women of color in the room, how do I make sure that this room is accessible for them in the ways it needs to be? So that's what I would say. But yes, thank y'all for those questions. I saw that there's some more coming in, but we hope that we can have some more time going forward with our with our teachings to hold space for y'all to ask more questions. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miranda and Fabian. Really appreciate it. But I don't know if y'all attended last, if some of our guests attended last the teach-in, but we do let y'all decide what topics you would like to learn about. So we will launch a poll, and yeah, it should pop up on Zoom, I believe. There we go. So I will read it. What should the teach-in topic be for April event? And then you have options there that you can vote for. And from there, we will decide what will be the teach-in topic for April. Cool, I see votes coming in. Just a couple minutes for this. or if you would like to see any topics too that we can add for our next poll, you can add them in the chat. Cool. Yeah, we have 1 more minute. But yeah, again, thank you, Miranda and Fabian. I do want to give our interpreter a break right now to catch their breath. And I'll be giving you some updates in English and Spanish. Please tune into the English channel to hear this part of the program. You will return to the Spanish channel once the healing portion of the program begins. We're just giving our interpreter a break. But yeah, go ahead and vote. And if you're done voting, you can tell us in the chat, you know, how you felt about that. I know I learned a lot. I always like to hear y'all speak. Ahorita estamos dándole un descanso a nuestra interpretadora Lynette. Muchas gracias, Lynette. Pero sí, por favor, voten. Ya se va a acabar el poll y ahí vamos a decidir qué tema vamos a hacer para el próximo mes. Entonces, creo que ya vamos a decidir. So, looking at the poll right now, there is a tie, but yeah, there's a tie. But I will let it be up to Miranda and Fabian. There's a tie between U.S. intervention in Latin America and mutual aid societies and networks, which are really good topics. Ahorita hay un empate en los temas que queremos aprender para el próximo mes de intervención de Estados Unidos en América Latina y sociedades y redes de ayuda mutua, ejemplos históricos y contemporáneos. Miranda says she loves both these topics. Entonces, yeah, we'll see what they pick. Vamos a ver qué escogen Fabian y Miranda. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll keep this in mind. Cool. All right. But yeah, during this break section, I would like to ask everyone to participate in a call to action. Yeah, let's practice Black and Brown solidarity and commit to eliminating these systems of harm and replace them with resources for our communities. So Gente Organizada, Trauma Roots Collective, and the ACLU released a report that detailed the staggering number of arrests of young people and the racial profiling of young Black people in Pomona. They also listed the demands many of us dreamt up in the Moment to Movement meetings this summer. If you're a part of that, it was beautiful, but a lot came out of that. So please support and endorse this campaign. The endorsement chat will be dropped, the endorsement form, will be dropped in the chat. You can review the reports and demands. Entonces, ahorita para practicar la solidaridad, tenemos un reporte que Gente Organizada, Trauma Roots Collective y the ACLU sacó de los arrestos de gente joven en la ciudad de Pomona. Y también pusieron muchas de las cosas que nuestra comunidad planeó este verano en ese tema. Y ahorita está en el chat el enlace y nos ayudaría mucho si ustedes firman o llenan esa forma y ahí pueden aprender más de todo el trabajo que fue hecho. So yeah, I invite you to do that. It's in the chat. Los invito a que miren a la forma que está en el chat. Y también si tienen tiempo, lean el reporte. A lot of people were involved in this work. It's something that was done as a collective. So I encourage you to take a look at it. I will put it in the chat again in case anyone missed it. Cool. If you already filled it out and you would like to say how you felt with that presentation, feel free to do that in the chat as well. Lynette, you can let me know when you feel ready to come back. And after this is when the heal-in portion comes. So as a reminder, please do grab the supplies that are needed. What are those? Get pillows, blankets, and towels for this heal-in portion. Un recordatorio que traigan sus, how do you say pillows? Almohadas, blankets, towels para esta sesión de sanación. Okay, Lynette has let me know. So we will now resume the interpretation on the Spanish channel. So if you require Spanish interpretation, go ahead, as I mentioned before, at the bottom right, there's a planet, just click the Spanish. Ya regresó Lynette, y entonces si requiere servicios de interpretación, vaya a la derecha, abajo, va a haber un planeta, ahí puede apachurrar eso y va a salir la opción de inglés o español. And yeah. And just want to highlight again, Grace says, just a reminder for the healing movement portion, blankets, pillows, towels will be supportive to the time. Grab a few of whatever you have that's accessible to the side. Okay, nice. So yeah, thank you for having us. We will now hand it off to our community healers, Grace Gonzalez and Jenny Ray Vidal.
Hi, everybody. So we're going to begin in a seated stance or in a standing stance, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Thank you, Fabian and Miranda, for a beautiful talk. I feel like there's lots of energy available to us now. Some of the information, when we get into the history of oppression and trauma, can be quite heavy, or even activating in a way that feels pretty fiery. So the healing portion is all designed to get that energy flowing through your body so that it doesn't just sit there and stagnate or create any physical or emotional distress. So our hope is that you can find either a seat or standing position for our opening that will have you feeling grounded and available for this practice. So I'm going to be seated, and I'll just invite us, if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes. And if you don't feel comfortable, find, with the eyes closed, find something that you can gaze at. And you'll just put your soft focus there. And we'll just take a few breaths here together. Inhaling through the nose, expanding your belly like a balloon, and exhaling with an open mouth, grounding down as you push your belly to the spine. You're taking a big breath in, expanding your belly, expanding your chest. And you can exhale with an open mouth, maybe relax your shoulders, maybe move them around, relax your head a little bit. And we'll do that one more time. Big breath in through the nose, expanding your torso out in all directions. Taking a full breath in. And as you exhale, everything draws back to center and grounding down through your sitting bones or through your feet. We'll keep the lips sealed now, breathing in through nose and out through nose. So breathing in through nose, your belly expands. Out through nose, the belly contracts back towards the spine. Breathing in deep, big belly breath. And exhaling everything, drawing back to the center. So it's in and out through the nose now. Good. And we'll begin to move our breath in a way that's a little more energizing, just to warm up the body in preparation for some movement. But while we're here, breathing in and out nice and slow, I just want to talk about the energy of nature right now as we just celebrated the arrival of spring. So this is a time when life force or life energy begins to move throughout all of nature. There's blossoms, the trees begin to sprout new leaves. All of this energy is like awakening around us in our natural world. And the same thing is true for us in our bodies. All of the stored energy that we've collected over winter is now being asked to start to move, which is why it's important to have these energizing conversations and activating movements to put our energy towards the right direction, to channel our energy towards collective action, collective healing, and community. So just take one or two more breaths here with that intention of moving and awakening the energy within, so that you can both be grounded and available for this action. Grounded and available for hard conversations. Grounded and well-resourced for whatever way forward you'd like to move. Okay, we'll begin our breath together. So this breath that I'll introduce you to is called Bhastrika breath in yoga. And we do this by inhaling, raising our hands and spreading your fingers really wide. So this is the inhale through the nose. And with the exhale, you're creating fists and bringing your elbows really close to the ribs, like almost bouncing off the ribs. So it's a fierce inhalation, and exhale, you close fists and bring the elbows really hard on the ribs, so you get that action, that connection, that contact through the sides of your body. We don't do it in a way that's aggressive, right? But a way that's intentional, fierce, and almost kind of intense, right? So it's a, we'll start slow and we'll go together, and then we'll begin to speed up. But just so you know, it's an inhale through nose and an exhale through nose. And when we bring the elbows like in like this, it stimulates the lymphatic system. It begins to get energy flowing in the body. So don't do anything too wild here. You want to keep your shoulders relaxed, keep your face relaxed. We don't want to create tension, but we want to create a clear channel for energy to move through the body. Right? So let's begin, and we'll start slow. It's inhale, reach your arms out, spread your fingers wide. Exhale, bring your elbows towards your ribs. Good. Inhale. Exhale. I'm opening my mouth here because I have to talk, but you're exhaling through the nose. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. In. Out. In. Out. Keep going. Keep going. Elbows touching the sides, getting energy flowing. Notice what's arising for you here. You may feel some heat, some energy moving in the body. We have about 20 more seconds of this. You can stay moving slow and rhythmic, or if you want, you can move faster for the last 10 seconds. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, release the hands to the knees. Take a big breath in through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Relax your shoulders, relax your face, stay grounded, rooted. So the idea is that we're building up the energy, but practicing staying grounded. Take a big breath in through the nose. Exhale, get grounded down through your sitting bones. This time we'll take a big breath in your nose. Your fullest breath yet, your biggest breath. And disclaimer, if you are not pregnant, you can hold your breath in for a count of 5. If you are, let the breath go. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Big breath in. And breath out. Relaxing here. Take a few moments to stretch out your body. Preparing for our flow time with Grace. Whenever you're ready, we're going to begin to move now through the body. So we've centered ourselves, we've gotten some energy flowing, and now we're going to come to our yoga practice.
Thank you, Jenny Ray. Go ahead and let me get started here. Taking that heat and continuing with it, we're going to come to the grounding. I'll wait for the screens to shift. If you didn't have a moment to get any pillows or blankets or cushions, whatever you have, towels, you can see off to the side I have a few pillows, I have a few blankets. It doesn't look like the screen has shifted. I think it's still on Jenny Ray.
Grace, I think it will shift on you. I think the only reason I'm showing is because there's no other screen.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll come to a standing stance. As we rooted into our seated, we're going to root into our standing. Okay, taking your feet about hips distance apart, a little bit wider. Feeling your feet connect to the ground, feeling your midfoot connect to the ground, feeling your arch connect to the ground. Continuing with inhales and exhales in your breath, taking full inhales and exhales. And on each exhale, connecting down into the toes, into the midfoot, and into the heels. Taking about 2 more breaths here. Coming from that grounding position, we'll start to shift our weight to the left, staying grounded in our feet, yet also finding a little bit of balance play here. And as you find that edge, shifting over to the right, staying grounded and in control. Okay? Maybe picking up the pace, maybe moving with your breath. On your next inhale, coming back to center. Taking it to the toes and to the heels. Again, feeling grounded and shifting the weight, but being in control, finding that place where it is pushing the edge, but also knowing that you are grounded and in control to come back. Coming back all the way down, connecting to the ground, toes, midfoot, heels. Inhale, bringing arms all the way up overhead. Exhale to fold at your hips, bending your knees. If you want, you can stay halfway lifted. I invite you to come all the way down, letting your head hang, your arms hang, your neck relax. We just moved our arms a lot, so giving some space. Maybe rolling the shoulders. Breathing here for about 2 more breaths. Pressing firmly into the ground, toes, midfoot, heels, bending generously with the knees, bringing hands to the hips to come back to standing in a slow motion, letting your head come up last, opening up your eyes, taking a gaze out in front, and then rolling the shoulders back so the arms come behind, kind of like a flying stance. Okay, rolling the shoulders back, maybe gently feeling your shoulder blades come in contact. We'll be here for 3 breaths. Opening of the chest, reversing anytime we sit with a natural in front of the computer. On your next inhale, we'll shift opposite, roll the shoulders forward, give yourself a hug, as tight or as soft as you want, bringing your chin towards your chest, being here for about 3 breaths, taking note of which arm you have on top. Reversing it one more time. Opening of the chest, shoulders back, shoulder blades touching. A little bit less time here. And opposite, rolling the shoulders forward. Hugging this time, opposite arm on top. One more breath here. Giving yourself the biggest hug. Okay, this time we'll flow 1 breath, 1 movement. Inhale to open. Exhale to close. Reversing your arms, which one's on top? Inhale to open. Exhale to close. Last one. Inhale to open. Exhale to close. Last big hug, giving gratitude to yourself. And go ahead and release. I'm going to turn off to the side. You could stay where you're at, just so you can see. Taking a step back with your right foot. Bringing your knee down to the ground. If you want some support for your knee, this is where you can grab a towel or a cushion. If this feels a little shaky, you can take your foot off to the left or walk it forward to find a little bit more of that grounding. Another option is to have both knees down, standing tall, or onto your heels. Okay, so choose whatever is best for you. I'm going to come back to this. Okay. Feeling the grounding again of your foot, reconnecting with the grounding of your front foot, the top of your foot to the back, using that to make you feel strong. Inhale the arms. Exhale, right arm comes behind, left arm comes forward. Okay, creating like a T shape. We'll be here for about 3 breaths. And as you're here, grounding with the feet, feeling connected in the ground and feeling how you feel some stretch in your upper thigh, feeling your torso twist, also stretching, taking your gaze towards the fingertips, your back fingertips, feeling the stretch in your neck. Full body stretch here. Inhale, swinging the arm under, coming back to center. And on our next exhale, we'll take it to the opposite side. Left arm comes behind, right arm comes forward. Grounding from your feet. Feeling the stability, support from your thighs. Stretching of the torso as you twist. And looking back at your fingertips. Inhale, coming back to center. Exhale, we'll do it one more time, a little less breaths here, about 2 breaths. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, taking it to the opposite side. 2 breaths. Inhale, come back to center. If you are in this low lunge, go ahead and use your hands coming to the mat or your ground and then switch legs. If you are on your heels, you're fine to stay there, just to have it balance out on both sides. Okay, on this side, we're going to do our 1 breath, 1 movement. Inhale, arms over. Exhale, open up to the T to your right side. Inhale, arms open, or arms center. Exhale to the left side. Inhale, center. Exhale to the right side. Inhale, center. Exhale to the left side. Inhale, center. Bringing your hands to the ground. We'll take a seated position from here. Your choice to have a seat on your bottom. If this is what you choose, I suggest bringing a cushion underneath you to raise your hips, and that way you can sit here comfortably. The other options are on your heels. Okay, choosing what is best for you, and at any moment, shifting those stances. Okay. And when you find what is best for you, inhale the arms overhead. Exhale, bringing the left hand to the ground right beside you, kind of like a kickstand, and your right arm over, feeling a side bend. Okay. Taking your gaze underneath the armpit, maybe up overhead, whatever your neck is in the need of. We'll be here for about 3 breaths. Inhale, coming back to center, reaching up tall. Exhale, reversing it. Right arm comes down to the side as a kickstand. Left arm comes over. Choosing your gaze down or up. Checking in with yourself, maybe trying one of each and deciding which one feels best for you today, right now. Inhale, coming back to center. We'll take that one more time with a stillness, but less. Exhale, left arm comes down, right arm comes over, stretching. Maybe you feel a little bit more space to bend. Bringing the shoulders even if you feel one hunching over, bringing that top shoulder back. Inhale, center. Exhale, right arm comes down to the side, left arm over. About 2 breaths here. Again, checking in with that awareness of how there may have been a shift in your body. Inhale, center. Go ahead and bring our arms down before we do our 1 breath, 1 movement, our flow. Give our arms a break. Okay. Doing our 1 breath, 1 movement, taking those same moves, just 1 breath at a time. Inhale, arms over. Exhale, left hand down, bend. Inhale, arms over. Exhale, opposite arm down and bend. Inhale, arms over. Exhale to bend. And you can also move at your pace. Inhale, arms over. Exhale, bend. Inhale, arms over. And we'll go ahead and bring them down to our lap. Okay. So this is where you will need a little bit more support from the cushions or the blankets. I'm going to bring mine down to have them near me. And you might want to give yourself some options. Try a few. So we'll come to a laying onto your back. Okay. Bringing your heels to about the distance of where your fingertips touch the back of your heels. Taking your feet about hips distance apart. Okay, setting up here. If you are pregnant, I suggest it is best for you to just lay here. If not, I invite you to raise your hips, bringing one of those cushions, one of those pillows right underneath your tailbone. Okay. You should feel an arch, a little stretch in your back. Choosing and deciding whether this is good enough. You might choose a little bit more and use one of your other pillows or blankets to, again, lift your hips. Bring it underneath to create more space. Right below the tail, right where the tailbone is, shoulders should be coming off of whatever your support is. If they're on your shoulders, maybe bringing it down a little bit more. Choosing your arms to be off to the side, taking up as much space as you want and need and feel best in your body. You can also choose to bring one arm to your heart, one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly, 2 hands to your belly, 2 hands to your chest. Whatever feels good for you. We'll be here for a few moments. Your gaze can be up straight, or you can take it off to the side. Okay. If your gaze was off to the side, go ahead and reverse, which you get to the opposite side to give your balance to your neck. If you were looking straight above and ahead, you could stay there about halfway. Coming back to center. Go ahead and bring your feet down, or actually let's roll off to the side to remove any of the support that you had. This time shifting it to the lower part of your feet, just to have kind of a space to prop your feet up above. You can choose to stay here and relaxing with your arms wide, hands to your chest, your belly. You can also choose to come into a seated, comfortable position as we shift to Jenny Ray to close us out with some of our sound bowl.
Right, so any position that feels most supportive and relaxed for you, I do invite you to close your eyes, or again, let your eyelids be heavy here and just come into a relaxed, natural breath. So this is our time of integration and relaxation before we close our night. I'm offering the sound of the singing bowl. Please invite a big breath in through your nose, breathing into your whole body. Open your mouth and exhale. We'll do that 2 more times together, taking a big breath in through your nose, filling up your belly and chest, expanding, breathing in together. And an open mouth exhale to relax, breathing out together. And then a final breath in through nose and out through mouth. We want to thank you all so much for sharing this evening with us. We want to thank Gente Organizada for allowing us to share space with you all. Thank you, Fabian and Miranda. Thank you, Brenda and Lynette. Thank you, Grace. Thank you all for showing up today and being a part of our community. We love you. We appreciate you. We stand in solidarity with you. We hope that we'll see you again next month for our Teaching Healing. If you have any questions, please just put them in the chat, or you can also reach out to us on social media or email. Thank you so much. Don't forget to sign up for next month. I think you'll have an opportunity to do that like as soon as tomorrow, maybe even. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all so much. Much love to you all. If my co-hosts do want to turn on their cameras and wave goodbye, that would be sweet too. Thank you, Jada. Thank you, Vanessa. All right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.